Alrighty, welcome to my channel for my first inaugural video. So I read The Deep Sky by Yume Kitasei. She sent me a copy of the book with it that was signed and with a personal letter, and I loved it. It was a great book. I had a great time reading it. It's fun. I love closed-circuit sci-fi mysteries. So it's a finite space with a finite amount of suspects, and there's no other way that it can be anybody else on this ship. And you have to figure out who it is. And it was really good. I love that trope. It is so much fun. Generational ships are some of my favorites. And the way that this book was written, I really couldn't guess the ending. And in the end, looking back at the end of the book, you're like, oh my god, I should have saw that coming. But you didn't. So it was really good. Other books that were similar to this one in plot or vibes would be Project Hail Mary by Andrew Weir, or The Spare Man by Marie Robinette Quall, or Dead Space by Callie Wallace. Those books were very similar to this one, and I enjoyed all of those, so I knew I was going to like this book. So this book is about a generational ship full of 80 people who have viable wombs, who are traveling to planet X to restart humanity on a different planet because we have destroyed our planet due to climate change. So that was the main thing. So they instead of having like artificial baby incubators, they just kept it all natural. And as long as like the base requirement was for them to have a viable womb, and that was interesting because that cuts out a lot of people who were definitely most likely qualified for the actual like mission, but because they couldn't have kids, they weren't able to go. And it makes sense in a sense that you don't have to spend expensive amounts of money on incubators when you already have people who could do that for you naturally. But each of the people on that ship were extremely talented and some of the best of their field anyways. You really have no doubts that they are the best option for the mission because they are all extremely dedicated people. And so we follow our main character, Asuka. Asuka is kind of a spare person. She's a floater who does a little bit of everything, picks up where they need her. So whether it's like agriculture or engineering or like ship maintenance, she's your gal. So because of that, they asked her to go out and check something on this outside of the ship with another one of the crew members. So her and another crew member go check out like a weird anomaly they're seeing on their screens, and they're like, well, what is this? So she goes out there, and it's kind of fun because her and the other crew member are racing to whatever it is, and the other girl beats her, and turns out it was a bomb. It explodes, and it kills her, and it blows a hole in the ship, knocks it off course, and kills the captain and another crew member on the inside of the ship. So, that's how the book starts. Asuka barely survives. She wakes up. Luckily, she had her tether onto the ship, and so she wakes up just like, what the hell just happened? She gets out, and the new co-captain, Ying Yue, she's the new captain now, she's second in charge, is like, we know it wasn't you because you were out there and you nearly got your ass blown off. So I need you to investigate who did it and why. And that's how the book starts, and that's where we go from. It's crazy. One of my absolute favorite characters of this book, though, was Ying Yue, the new captain. She was really cool. She was really fun. Super smart, extremely capable woman. She really did not want to be the captain. She was totally cool with being second in command. And she's like, what? I'm in charge now. Oh my god, what do I do? And she kind of has to figure it out. and there's like politics involved. The geopolitical situation on Earth is also affecting what's going on the ship. And that was really cool. And one of the coolest things about this universe that Yume created was this augmented reality called DAR. And it's basically just you get to create your own reality overlay, and it's catered to you. So our main character, Asuka's, hers was normally like the wilds of California. And one of the other characters, hers was underwater. And another one was some fantasy video game that she liked. And I was like, that is cool. So it completely overlays the entire just like blank ship. So instead of them being confined into a really boring ass blank ship space, they get to have an augmented reality and live in a world that looks the way that they wanted it to look. So that was really cool. I really like that. That was really interesting. I would have loved to have a DAR like that. That would be super cool. But this is a closed circuit mystery. So that means that every single person on the ship is a suspect and nobody else could have really done it, because they are literally halfway between Planet X and Earth, and there's no way that there could have been anybody else on there. They're trying to figure out who did it, why they did it, what happened. And I love those because it gets really intense, because all the people on the ship worked together from when they were 12 until they were like 22, 23 before the ship took off. And they worked together to earn their spot on the ship. There's only 80 spots available. And so they really had to earn what they wanted and where they were going to go and whether or not they were going to go. And to think that somebody you created such a special and close bond with, going through all of your struggles together, decided to betray you, that's heavy and that's hard. That's really hard to deal with. One of the few things I really didn't like about this book was the 3 or 4 chapters that you would get with them on the ship, and then a chapter flashback of their training. It really took me out of the mystery and the story just to give me more background information on all these people. And I was like, I don't really care. I just want the mystery. I don't really care. Like, I like it. It was cool and interesting still, but I didn't. You keep interrupting my mystery, and I don't like that. But other than that, that's the only complaint I really had about the book, was just the flashbacks, because I just didn't want the mystery to stop. So I highly recommend the book. It's great. Now I'm going to go interview the author. She agreed to an interview with me, and let's go see what she has to say about her own book. Okay, so now we're here with Yume Kitasei. So we're going to talk about her book, The Deep Sky. And I've read it, and I loved it. It was so much fun. It is a sci-fi mystery. It is a fun space romp, close circuit mystery, and I had a great time. So it was so much fun. Thank you for sending it to me. I had a great time. I loved Asuka. I thought she was one of the coolest characters. And I thought all the scientists were very real. Like, they were real people. They weren't stuck up. They weren't like because I've worked with scientists before, and they are that petty sometimes, and they're regular people. And I really enjoyed the way that everyone they felt like a really tight-knit community. Yeah. And they were rocked by a tragedy, and they had to figure out what the fuck happened.
Yeah. It's funny. I wrote this book in 2020, and I sort of have this joke with other authors whenever we talk about books that came out in 2023, that every 2023 novel, because of like how long it takes to to get through the publication process is like a pandemic novel. Um, and I don't know if you've noticed this because I know you read quite a few books that have come out in have come out this year. But I do feel like there's a certain undercurrent of deep, sort of intense emotions in 2023 books because of that. And that was definitely true for my book, The Deep Sky, which I read while we were at the height of everything that was going on.
That definitely makes sense. I can definitely get that vibe off of that. That makes sense.
I actually was talking to an author recently at the Texas Book Festival, and we were having the same conversation. And she just wrote a cookbook, and I was thinking, okay, maybe this one doesn't actually have a connection. She's like, yeah, I wrote a cookbook during the pandemic about like basically how to host people for parties. Which, can you imagine that? It's like must have been like a really emotional thing to do.
Like, here's how to host people, even though I can't bring my friends over at all. Try this out. So, was Asuka a self-insert? Did you see yourself in Asuka?
No and yes. I mean, I think Asuka is definitely not me. But I would say, as an author, every character you write, to me anyway, is a little bit of yourself. I think because in order to make characters that are making choices that make sense or feel real, you've got to be able to understand where they're coming from emotionally and what their choices are, why they're making the choices they make, even if they're not choices that you would make. So I would say actually, like a lot of the characters in The Deep Sky, I think have bits and pieces of me. But I would say the character that I probably identify with the most is Yingyue. I think is probably closest to my personality than versus Asuka. Mostly because Asuka isn't like incredibly social, and I really like people, and I like meeting people, and she's just a little bit more okay with being a loner.
Yingyue was actually my favorite character in the whole book.
Oh, that's nice.
I loved Yingyue. Every time she came, she would show up and be like, "Oh yay, she's back! I love her. She's so much fun."
Love that. Yeah.
She was definitely my favorite. Is the karasu your favorite bird?
So karasu is like used to be. I would say when I lived in Japan, I think we all saw them sort of as a nuisance, but my view on them has changed since I was a child. I love corvids. I think they're just really cool birds. The way that the bird intelligence, that they have, like the way that the flocks can remember even generations later, is just really fascinating to me. But I think I also like the Arctic tern, which I wrote about in the book. I've never actually seen an Arctic tern, but I just love the idea of these birds that can fly for such long distances, and even sleep while they're flying, and like it's just I think the whole idea of it is so majestic to me.
That's very cool. Did you read Migration?
I didn't read Migration. I read a couple books, which I think I referenced in the acknowledgments, about bird intelligence while I was writing this. So yeah, I enjoy reading about animal psychology and, among other things, bird brains.
So why did you choose to only have people with fertile wombs who could go on this voyage? I thought that was a very fascinating choice because I would feel like that would cut out a lot of people who would be good to be on this trip.
Yeah, absolutely. I think part of it was I grew up reading a lot of science fiction, like old school science fiction, like Asimov and Heinlein, and a lot of the classics. And I love science fiction, but I did want to write something that was predominantly more some of the characters that you don't see as much in those books. And as I was constructing the whys and the world building and the story itself, it just started to sort of feel like logical to me. I mean, I think there are always going to be ethical issues with who you choose to bring or not bring on this kind of journey, but I think Mary Robinette Kowal in the Lady Astronaut series talks a lot about like the advantages of, having non-cis male astronauts. And I don't know, there is a little bit of logic to that, I guess,
Mhm.
in terms of resources and uh, height and all of that.
I mean, it made sense because I was like, okay, so you at least get 80 at least incubators
Right, right,
for for to make other people for when they
right.
actually do settle. I actually did read Mary Robinette Quall's The Spare Man. I do really like her book.
Mhm. That was a really fun book. I like
That
that.
was, that was
Came
fun.
out here.
That was a fun one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that was really cool. I thought you did a really good job with talking about the complexity of choosing the people who went on there, because
Thank
like
you.
there was also a ton of politics that was involved when it came to choosing the people versus the American versus the Chinese, and how the Japanese and the Philippines only got
Right.
like one or two representatives. Um, and like that, I thought that was really well done. And I was like, that would actually totally make sense, and that would be how it would absolutely happen in real life.
Yeah,
If
and I don't know that like the final result is actually the fairest result, which I guess sort of was the point that I was trying to make. I
yeah,
do think like
it
it's
wasn't the fairest
entirely
result, and that's the
possible.
way it would be in real life.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
there are definitely
Um,
people from other countries who probably were just as qualified, but because they didn't
yeah,
have the money
yeah,
behind them, they
right,
didn't get in. And I was like, that is
yeah,
very fair, very logical, very real. So
right.
I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that. It was really cool. So one of the things that Asuka struggled with in the book was not being able to become pregnant. She had fertility issues.
Mhm.
Um, do you think that she got pregnant afterwards? Do you think she was able to have a baby?
No, I think she ended up being a very happy auntie.
Okay. Um, Now, do you think that, because you also talked about how Asuka, she really didn't talk to boys or girls or really anybody,
Yeah.
do you think she was like an Ace Arrow character?
I think she's definitely on the spectrum, but I'm not sure that she's thought too deeply about, what she is.
That makes
Um,
sense.
yeah, I mean, I think, somebody asked me at an event recently, like, um, why my, why I don't, why my books are not like, they don't have as much romance. It's much more about what I like to call friend mance, like
Hmm.
the relationships that you have with your friends. And, I think that, for me anyway, my relationships with my friends are, incredibly important. And I think that's true for Asuka as well. I
Hmm.
think, when you're an adult, like, you know, the, the friends that you have, can really make a difference in terms of like how you get through crises. And found family is definitely like something I'm a sucker for.
Yeah, I love being a good found family story.
Yeah,
And your relationships with your friends can definitely be just as meaningful and um,
yeah,
intense as your relationships with your significant others. So
absolutely. Yeah.
that was really cool. Now, would you have gone on the voyage? So if you got chosen to go, would you have gone?
You know, if if I were their age, I think probably I would have been tempted to. But I think now that I'm older, I think I wouldn't go. Um, I I feel like I love the earth too much, and and my friends, my family, and I also don't think I would have been I would be the best choice for the crew. Um, so yeah, no, so I think I'd probably pass on that. I don't know. What about you?
I don't think I would go either. There are plenty of people who are significantly smarter than me,
Yeah,
um, who would be able to go. But I also think that I would be here on Earth trying to fix the problems here than going out.
yeah,
Um, but I would definitely still support them going out and exploring and expanding.
yeah,
Because I would
yeah,
be super interested in that, just the actual
right,
science behind everything that's going on.
yeah,
Um, but I don't think I would be able to go, just
yeah,
because I wouldn't be able to bring my dogs. I wouldn't be able to bring,
right,
I get to talk my parents through an email every once in a while. I'd be sad,
yeah. I think that
and
would be helpful for me too.
it'd be hard.
But I will say, if I was very close to the other crew and they were already sort of my family, I might think about it.
Yeah. Um, what part of this book was the hardest part to write?
So the hardest scene was definitely the interrogation scene because I'm very conflict averse.
Mhm.
But The hardest part, I would say, is the mystery elements because, you really want to walk a line between clues being present enough that when somebody finally gets to the revelation, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, like that makes sense, and I can see how that person did it. But you don't want it to be so obvious that every single reader immediately guesses who it was. Um, and I think that's tricky. I mean, I think I don't know if it's possible to write a mystery where like some percentage of your readers don't already like guess the person. Um, but hopefully not everybody. So
I
that's
didn't guess it. I didn't guess it until um I want to say about 3/4 of the way through. I was like, wait, hold up.
yeah.
It's probably this. I think this is what actually happened. And then at the end when you explain like, oh, here were the actual clues, and I'm like, you
Yeah.
know what? God damn it, you were right. Those were there. You definitely did lay that out for me. And I was like, no, that was good. That was good. I definitely didn't see that coming. Oh, so one of the things that you did, I noticed, was that you did end up gendering the AI. Having a gendered AI is actually pretty, honestly, kind of rare in sci-fi books nowadays. You
Yeah.
gave the AI she/her pronouns, and I was like, oh, interesting. I was expecting no pronouns for the AI. What made you choose to do that?
So I will say that when I was writing this book, a lot of the characters changed gender many times because I was sort of you know trying to find who each of the characters were, and so that there were a lot of characters who sort of underwent a lot of swaps, and the AI was one of them. I think the reason that I settled on she/her for the AI in the end was because she's sort of meant to be a foil in a way for Asuka's relationship with her mother. Um, and of course, in some ways, the relationship she has with Alpha is sort of maybe what she thinks is the relationship she should have with her mother. And then ultimately, I think she sort of comes to terms with the fact that the relationship she actually wants is with the mother that she left behind, and not this, artificial construct. Um, so I think that was sort of part of the thinking.
Oh, okay. I didn't think about it like that. That's very cool. Um, do you think that they actually made it? That they were able to get back on course? And
Well, I'm an optimist, so I'm gonna say yes.
okay, I think so too. I'm an
Yeah,
optimist. I
yeah,
think that they made it and they were able to
yeah.
survive. Um, one of the coolest things in the book was the DAR, your AI augmented reality system that everyone had. That was so cool. I loved that. Where did you come up with the idea for that? That was my favorite part of the whole book.
Yeah. It's so that is a technology obviously that is sort of almost here already. I mean, I think not maybe at that scale, but it's in reach. And I like I said, I wrote this book during a lot of it during 2020 and 2021, and was thinking a lot about time period. It was during a time when we were all living these lives that were predominantly online, and um, I think part of it was part of it was good because it sort of is how we connect with people. You kind of didn't have any other choice, but at the same time, I feel like sometimes when you live wholly on the internet, it's easier in a way to like construct your own bubble and only be around people whose opinions you share, and with people who are like you. And you can become very insulated from you know different opinions and sort of like the broader world. And that's on the one hand, that's a more comfortable way to live, and on the other hand, it's not maybe true to like the geographic reality that you may be in. And I think when I was thinking about Dara, I was sort of thinking about like where we're going, and why things have become so divisive and fractured in the current landscape. And so I think that's sort of where that idea came from. So it's both like I think it's both like a wonderful thing, and also has a potential dark side to it.
Yeah, no, that totally made sense, and the dark side definitely came out in in the story. I thought it was really cool. Just how everyone can just have their own little reality. Like she was walking
Right.
through California, the mountains of California, while she's in reality she's crawling through her the Habering,
Right.
and then it went away. She's like, oh wait, no, this is actually reality, and this place kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was so cool. Um,
Yeah.
how would you have your dart? What would your dart look like?
Well, so I'm predominantly a speculative fiction writer, so I would say that my Dar would probably be something futuristic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it'd be an opportunity to sort of live in the future I probably will never get to see, in like 100 years or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be pretty cool. But I'd want to mix it up a little bit too, probably. What about you?
I love the Great Smoky Mountains up here where I live.
Yeah.
I would probably make mine like hiking through the Great Smoky Mountains.
Oh, yeah. Those are beautiful.
So yeah, it's one of the most beautiful places on earth in my opinion. So I'd love
Yeah.
that's how I would have mine. I'd make mine the North Georgia wilderness.
Yeah, I kind of, I guess I kind of also would be interested to see other people's stars. I think I think in some ways other people's imaginations are a fun place to live.
So when it came to you actually like making your book, did you get a say in your cover art? Because I do love the cover art; it is beautiful.
So covers are really, I love it too, and credit to Jonathan Bush for designing both this one and my next book, which I think is an even more
It's
cool
also just
version.
as cool.
Yeah, it's really cool cover. So every publisher does it slightly different. My contract says I have consultation rights, which is I think pretty common. And the way Flatiron does it is they give you a very extensive questionnaire that you fill out, and then you also give them sort of examples of covers that you think would be a good sort of comp. And then they come back a couple months later and they're like, here you go. And you can, at that point, you can say, can you change this or that small thing? But usually it's not like completely changing it.
You can't be like, go back to the drawing board. I hate all of it. And they're like, no.
Right. I mean, well, actually, that's interesting. I don't know what would have happened if I had hated the cover. I'm sure they try to keep me happy, so I think that we probably could have had a conversation. It might have delayed production. And actually, I will say that like when we were discussing the title, I sort of was like, I was like, I sort of in some ways care less about the title than I do about the cover, and so I was nervous the cover was going to be one that I didn't like, so I sort of just went along with the title change. I mean, the title is a good one and all that, but
yeah. How did you settle on the title?
The title. So the title originally was based on a Basho title. The title of Basho's travelogue. It was A Narrow Road to the Deep Sky.
Oh, okay.
And when we were negotiating the deal for this book, the first meeting that I had with my editor, she sort of encouraged me to shorten the title because it's more gives you more cover options and also like is a little bit more catchy. It's short. So we they came back and they're like, what about just the Deep Sky, which is the part that's not Basho, but whatever. I still got to have like that little excerpt at the front, which is sort of a nod to the title that was lost. But yeah, but that was the original title. And like I said, I mean, I think it's funny. I things that I thought I would care a lot about before I got a book deal ended up being the things that I feel like I'm less obsessive over. Titles apparently are one of them.
Yeah, I would have a really hard time coming up with a title for a book, so I'd just be like, yeah, you guys come up with it for me because I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
But anyway, so the cover, I will just say, the one change that I really pushed for was the cover is. Let me see if I can show you. It's the cover is this is like a hokusai painting, like a print, which is a famous Japanese woodblock, and originally they had put the Great Wave, and I asked them to make it this one, which is the feminine wave. Just a
Oh,
little
okay.
Easter egg that's in here.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Because personally, the Great Wave is one of the most beautiful paintings I've ever personally seen, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So that's why I was.
And
So that's kind of where I thought it might have been from. But yeah, because I see it. I see it in the background. I actually
yeah,
have a,
exactly.
a copy of it hanging in my bathroom actually too. So I think it's one of the most
The
beautiful
one
paintings.
behind me is actually the feminine wave.
It is.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
so cool. Oh my gosh, I know. Um, I love those kind of paintings. They're very cool in my opinion. Um,
yeah,
so that's why I was just like, that's kind of what I thought what it was.
yeah,
But I
yeah, yeah.
wasn't sure because no, I do absolutely love the cover. I thought it was a super
Thank
cool
you.
cover.
Thanks.
Um, so the Goodreads Choice Awards were announced, and you were in the running for the sci-fi section. I actually did vote for you, so
Oh, thank you.
I voted for your book because that was the one on there that I read and I liked. Um, so how did you feel about getting 13th place?
What? So was it out of 13 or?
No, no, it was out of like 20 something.
Oh, okay.
It was like out of like 20 something. Um,
I I know this sounds kind of trite, but I was so surprised that I was nominated, to be honest, because it's you know it's with there were a lot of other authors on that list who are favorite authors of mine and like
mhm.
pretty big deals. So I was just like, oh, that's nice, and also there's like no way that I'm gonna actually get to the next round. So I kind of like I was like, that's nice, and I kind of never checked again. So I didn't realize that there were actually rankings, but it's nice to know that I was in the middle.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
like, where's the one that I voted for? I was like, oh, no, that needs to be higher. That should have been a lot higher, but okay.
yeah.
It's the
I
People's Choice Award. It's the People's Choice Award. Of course, the big names are going to win.
yeah. I mean, I
I
think
mean,
there are some
did
books
you
that are just like more.
did you see the difference in the romantasy category between Fourth Wing and the second choice?
No, what was the difference?
It was like 300,000 votes was the difference. Like
Wow.
Fourth
Well,
Wing got like
I think also the thing is that like people vote for the thing generally vote for books that they've read,
yeah.
and there are some books that just have been read much more widely than other books. Like my book, if you look at the number of people who read it versus I think the ones the other ones on the list that were by like famous authors, obviously like there's a huge gap in
Hmm.
how many people have read my book versus theirs. Um, so I mean, it's not really a surprise. Like, no, you're not gonna vote for The Deep Sky if you haven't read it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's true.
Yeah.
So when you were writing your book, who was the person who in the background who was being like, "Woohoo, go Yumi"?
So I'm an identical twin, and my
Really?
twin sister, yeah, my twin sister is, I would say, my first reader on everything. She gets offended if she's not, and is the person that I've been writing for probably since I was not quite in the womb, but for a very long time.
Since you could write,
Yeah,
that's so cool.
and she gets offended when people say they don't like the main character because or the main character is not likable because she sees, I guess, some elements of herself in the main character. It's probably true for a lot of the things that I write.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Well, I liked it, so I'd like your sister too.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, what was your biggest hurdle in writing this book?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're a writer, I'm sure a lot of people feel this way. I would say imposter syndrome and taking yourself seriously, especially before you get a book deal, but even after you get a book deal. Um, I think we all have day jobs usually, and yet you still have to take yourself seriously enough to carve out the time to devote yourself to improving your craft and like writing this story day after day after day and turning down invitations to hang out with people, and prioritize this thing that like could just go in the trash in a year. And I think that to me is always the hard part is taking yourself seriously before other people take you seriously. That the thing that you're working on is something that maybe could be published someday.
So were any of the characters in your book based on people in real life?
No comment.
Well then, so how did it feel when you finally got that first physical finished copy of that book?
Oh, unreal. Yeah, pretty awesome.
Mm.
You get the ARC first, so it's like
Mhm.
a paperback version that isn't quite, what the finished copy would look like, but the hardcover, when you get it, it's beautiful, and that's when you start to feel like it's real. And then when you go and I think one of my favorite things is going into bookstores and seeing it and then getting to sort of like, oh, you mind if I sign it? That's really fun.
So, for you, what is literary success? So now that your book is out there, what does you're finally a debut author? What does success look like for you?
I would say I have two dreams. One is that I continue to be able to write. So, hopefully the Deep Sky does well enough that the Deep Sky and the next book, the Stars Growl, does do well enough that I can get more book deals, and continue to write steadily for the next, I don't know, 35 years. Is that reasonable? I think a lot of authors, you publish and then you may never get another deal. So I hope for longevity. I think that would be success. And then my other secret bucket list would be, maybe sometime in the next few decades, I would absolutely love to be a Booker judge.
Oh, okay.
I every year with my friends read the Booker long list, and it's something I've been doing, I think, now for 10 or 11 years. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. But you'd have to do it at a stage in your career where you had time, which I do not.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's cool. So how long did it take you to write this book? So you said you started writing it in the pandemic. Overall, how long do you think it took you?
It's about 2 years. Yeah. The first book that I wrote that got me an agent didn't sell. That was like probably the third or fourth book that I wrote, and then that was the fourth book I ever wrote. And then this one, so it didn't sell, and my agent's like, okay, gotta write a new book. So I was like, dang it. So I wrote it in about 2 years, which was at the time felt fast, and then I wrote the second one in under a year. So now that feels really fast. But yeah, I would say it took me 2 years while working a job that I was working 60, 70 hours a week. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's really long. Those are long weeks. Good Lord.
Yeah.
So how often did you get writer's block while you were writing?
I don't know if I would call it writer's block so much as like you just feel tired and you don't know that you can sit down and sort of keep plunking away.
Mm-hmm.
I think you get that all the time, especially if your day job is demanding or your life is demanding because you have other things that you have to do. But so yeah, I would say quite often. But it helps if you find people in your life to be sort of accountability partners, other writers that you can write with. That's really helpful, so that you can have somebody to sort of be pacing with and sort of like a running buddy,
Mm-hmm.
somebody to keep you sitting down every day and you can commiserate with. I think that's been really helpful.
Who is that for you?
So I would say I have a bunch of people in my life who are sort of like that. One of my best friends, she isn't a writer per se, but we meet quite often on the weekends to just work together, and that's been nice. I also have like a virtual space that I have created where writers can come and sort of hang out, and so my writing friends from the debut Slack that I joined, we sort of get together and we write together, and that's been really wonderful. And then I'm in a bunch of different writing groups.
So how many hours a day do you normally spend writing?
A day, it sort of depends on my day job. A week, I would say my goal is about 12 hours.
Okay.
minimum, if possible.
That's a whole
So
part-time job.
yeah, and that doesn't count. That doesn't obviously include like all the time spent on, the sort of the business side of it, like the conversations you have with marketing and publicity and your editor about like, the little things and all of that, and then the social media that you do to promote it. And so I would say it sort of comes out to maybe roughly two full-time jobs, or a full-time job that's like 35 hours a week, and then a full-time job that's like 60 to 70 hours a week.
Goodness gracious. I could.
It's a bit painful.
Yeah, that's exhausting. Um,
Yeah.
so when
Maybe one day I'll be super successful enough that like I won't feel like I have to sort of balance, but yeah.
do you so which is more important to you, character or plot?
I think character is for me as a reader, character is really important. I need to really like the characters and sort of feel them. But I think because plot is challenging for me, I've really that's probably what I've focused most on in the past couple years, is learning how to plot tightly and make the elements come together. And when you like finally unknot something and it all sort of falls into place, that's so satisfying. So yeah, but you start with character for me anyway. I start with character.
Okay. So describe your writing space for me. How do you get into the zone?
Yeah. So I live in a small Brooklyn apartment. My bed is right over there. I'm sitting at my desk. I've angled my camera so you can't see my laundry rack in the background. So I mean, my desk is where it is because it's the only configuration that works in my room. So I've got a little desk that I got off of Craigslist and carried home on the subway.
That's
And
so New York. I love it.
yeah,
That's quintessential New York
maybe
City.
in this case actually I did that. That's an exaggeration. I think in this case I did maybe call a car, a cab. But yeah, but I can like write. I can write in a lot of different places. My only criteria is I can't feel like there's somebody who can actually see my screen, because then I get a little self-conscious.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah, no, my bed is literally right there too.
Yeah,
I work. This is my work. This is also my work from home space. So, like,
very nice.
that's how I do the same thing.
Yeah, I do wonder when I'm on BookTok, I do wonder when I see everybody's like beautiful displays. I'm like, is everybody like also just sort of like, angling it correctly,
Hmm.
or do people have more space than I do?
Yeah, no, I live in a 2-bedroom, third floor walk up, so so that's why I'm like, nope, this is all I get. Um, when oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Um, so when did you first realize you wanted to become an author?
I used to be really scared of the dark. Actually, like, sometimes still I'm a little scared of the dark. And the soothing technique I had when I was little was I would tell myself these very epic stories, which actually I should say I still do. Like, these books that I never planned to write, but that I sort of like keep in my brain and sort of look back and forth. And so it's sort of like almost like counting sheep. It was a sleep technique that I started when I was in elementary school. And yeah, I mean, I've always been a big reader. And I think as soon as I knew that that was something that you could do, something that I've always wanted to do.
Do you have any non-writing hobbies?
Yeah, I love, I enjoy running. I enjoy cooking, and then the two things that I would say that I really like to do that maybe are slightly different from just that is I like going on very epic walks. So for example, I've done like the circumnavigation of Manhattan several times, where you walk the entire rim of Manhattan in one day. Or like, a walk from like, where we are now all the way to the top of Queens, which is quite far. So like really long, you know, 14-hour walks. You stop and you eat along the way, so they're quite fun. And then another thing that I enjoy doing, my sisters and I call it the perfect day. So you have a friend and you plan like basically a day that would be like that person's like perfect experience, and you sort of put together like a series of like experiences as you're like walking around the city, for example, where you like happen upon this restaurant, and like so you sort of curate an entire day, and that's something that I've done a couple times for friends. It's like quite fun.
That
Just
sounds
a way of like sort of
delightful.
experiencing New York. Yeah.
I absolutely would love to do that. That sounds delightful.
Yeah.
When it came to writing your book, what was the most fun part to write?
The outside space scenes. I think those were
Mm.
really fun. The action sequences when Asuka's outside.
So do you? So you're also a reader, obviously. If you're a writer,
Yes.
you have to be a reader.
Uh,
What you reading?
what am I reading right now? So I always read three books, I would say, give or take, at a time, usually because they're different formats, so like ebook, audiobook, and print. So I'm reading Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow is the audiobook that I'm listening to right now.
Oh,
So my sisters and I have a book club, an annual book club, and so that's the last one that I have to get through. And pretty good so far. I'm enjoying it. And then the other book that I'm reading is Forged by Blood by Ehi Oksan, who's a debut author. And that's a fantasy, adult fantasy that I'm reading. That's also really good. That's my print book. And then the electronic one is my first past pages for the Stardust Grail.
fun. Okay. So what is your current favorite book of all time?
Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, what was the book? The cover, it's red and it has the eye with the sun in it, right? With the hand. Oh,
No,
is it with
this is the one that's about the British butler sort of looking back at the end of his life.
Okay.
And
I
that was
can't.
the first book that I read that I both laughed and cried. It was just such a perfect novel in my mind. Not when you say like character or plot, I would say it's definitely much more of a character book than a plot book. But it was just so beautiful, and I really enjoyed it.
I've been meaning to get into that author for a while now. I've heard nothing but good things about their books, so I definitely want to read their books.
And each book is sort of plays with genre, so
Mhm.
you never know what you're gonna get when you read a Kazuo Ishiro.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it makes me excited to actually read more of their books. I've always wanted to read them, so they're on my list of authors to get to. Hopefully, 2024.
Very Giant. I think you might like Very Giant. It's fantasy, but very surreal.
Okay.
And yeah, I can't really describe it very well, but it's maybe not the one that people normally recommend, because it's kind of a very difficult read, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was beautiful.
With that, so is Ishiguro your favorite author? Who's your favorite author?
Yeah, I would say he's definitely one of my favorite authors. I have so many authors that I will like auto buy. Nnedi Okorafor
Yes,
is a
absolutely.
great one. Martha Wells, wonderful author. Mary Robinette Kowal, I love. John Scalzi, N.K. Jemisin is great. Yeah, so I have it's hard for me to pick a favorite. So many people that
Those are all excellent authors, so I totally agree with you. Again, those are all great. So what would be 3 books that you think everybody should read?
Yeah, that's a hard question. That's a hard question because I think people. I'm sort of the feeling that like there are different books for different people, and I think my theory off whenever I have friends who don't read, I think I'm like I think you're not a reader right now because you're trying to read the wrong things. So I do feel like it's hard to find a universal pick. But I will say, so I'm going to change your question. I'm going to say 3 or 4 books that I have read recently that I really enjoyed. So yeah, some books that I've read recently that I enjoyed. Let's see, in no particular order. This one, On Earth as It Is on Television by Emily Jane. It's a
I
debut. These actually, these are all going to be debut books because that's sort of what I've been reading a lot of this year. This was really funny. It was kind of like a bit like Douglas Adams,
okay.
like a contemporary version. So I really enjoyed this. This is fun. And there are a lot of telepathic cats in it. This one came out at the beginning of the year, Liar, Dreamer, Thief by Maria Dong. Also half Asian author. And was just kind of like very surreal and twisty, and it was a thriller, but I wouldn't necessarily categorize it as a thriller. And it was just like this really surprising and beautiful book, and the ending is like, really gorgeous. And then The First Bright Thing by J.R. Dawson was also a lot of fun, and also really poignant, about a magical circus. And I'm actually not into circuses in real life, but I would say this one is, it's about found family, as we've been talking about, and there's a lot of interesting like historical fiction sort of jumping back and forth, so that's great. Yeah, that was beautiful. Those are just some books I've read this year that I have been recommending.
Those look really good. I'm gonna definitely check them out. What is an underappreciated author or book that you love? Like books that
That's
people...
also a book that I read this year.
Okay.
I've been talking about this one actually quite a bit, but this is The Tip Line by Vanessa Kuti.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also a debut book. This book was marketed as a mystery thriller, and I don't think that it was. What it was like this like surreal, literary, deeply introspective, sort of suffocatingly introspective literary novel, sort of in the vein of like Sylvia Plath or like Virginia Woolf. Very like, very much about like the way that your thoughts churn in your brain, and how you view the people around you. It's sort of set in Long Island, and about basically a woman who works at a tip line for the police, and in the background, there's a serial killer, sort of who's been sort of like the Long Island serial killer who was just caught finally. And so when you describe the plot, it always sounds like it's, like I said, it always sounds like it's supposed to be like procedural or like a mystery thriller. But I think the thing that I really loved about it was just that it's like very introspective and intense, and like you read it, you finish reading, and you're like, what did I just read?
Those are my favorite ones.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not a like conclusive mystery that gets tied up at the end.
So, do you use so try it again. So you live in New York City. You
Yes.
have a robust library system there.
Yes.
Do you take advantage of it?
Oh yeah. And I will say, actually, if you I think a lot of New Yorkers don't realize that you can actually join all three systems. So there's three systems in New York. There's the New York Public Library System, which covers, I'm going to tell you more than you actually want to know about the library system in New York. New York Public Library covers Staten Island, Manhattan, and the Bronx. So I have one that's right near my office, so I'm a member of that. And then the Brooklyn Library System, which has a great ebook and audiobook selection. And that one is just Brooklyn. That's because for many years, up until like, I don't know, like 100 plus years ago, Brooklyn was a separate city, so they have their own library system that never consolidated. And then there's the Queens Library System, which also has its own, set of books. So I'm actually a member of all three, and when I look for books, I sort of look to see which one has the shortest wait, which is Libby's actually really helpful for that, because they'll tell you, which one is the fastest. Yeah.
I have a library card for the two largest. So in Atlanta, they do it by county.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Fulton County is where Atlanta is. Fulton and DeKalb
Yeah.
are the two counties. And then Gwinnett is the second largest county. So I have a Gwinnett,
Mm,
I have a Gwinnett, a DeKalb, and a Fulton library card.
yeah.
So I have friends who live there who aren't readers. I'm like, hey, can you just go to the library for me and just get a card?
Yeah.
And they did, and they were like, here you go, here's your library card. I'm like,
That's
yes.
amazing.
So
That's
I get to
amazing.
use their library
Yeah.
system, and I love it. Oh my gosh, that's one of the reasons why I'm able to get through so many books is because of the library.
Yeah, absolutely. I sometimes will like, people always are when I talk to readers, they're always like slightly apologetic if they read my book from the library, and I'm always like, you know, like that's amazing, that's great. And also, libraries are a great source of, if libraries are buying your books, that's also like amazing. So,
Yeah, I
um,
I
I
want you to read that at your library.
yeah, it's like
Use your
I'm like,
resources.
yeah, please
Use
request
your
it. Yeah,
library. It's great.
yeah,
Use Libby.
exactly.
It's great.
Yeah,
Use it. I love the library. My mom took me there when I was a kid, and that's kind of what
yeah,
got me started reading. Was we would go to the library and
same, same.
she'd pick us out.
I used to do that
Um,
thing. I don't know if you did this, but I used to do that thing where like you like go through the shelves and basically like, if you go shelf by shelf, and if there's a book you haven't read on the shelf, then you pick something off of it and basically go from there.
no. So when I was a kid, when we moved to Atlanta, we lived next to this thrift store, and in the thrift store they would always have Animorphs books.
Oh yeah,
I would pick out Animorphs books, and I was obsessed with them.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I was an Animorphs kid.
I feel like I
Hard.
got a few of those from the Scholastic Book Fair.
I got so many of them from the thrift store.
Yeah.
And I was obsessed with them. I love them. Um, but what book really got me into reading was Inkheart by
Mm-hmm.
Cornelia Funk. My
Yeah.
friend, one of my oldest friends, I'm still friends with him to this day. He gave it to me for my 8th birthday,
Oh,
and I've read it, and I fell in love with it, and I hadn't really stopped since.
wow.
What was the book that got you into reading when you were a kid?
You know, I don't know if it was as definitive as a moment. I mean, we read a lot of Wizard of Oz books when we were growing up, which maybe I shouldn't name check because I feel like if I were to go back and read them, I'd find some elements that were a little bit not no longer stand the test of time. But yeah, I mean, amazing world building and whimsical and fun and speaking of found family, right? Like that's like one of the classic found family stories. So the Wizard of Oz, you've got the Wizard of Oz, and then there's like all of the books that like come after and like different authors who sort of contributed to that universe. And we read so many of those. My mother once took us out, like let us take a day off of school to go down to the Library of Congress when we lived in Washington D.C. and read some of the out of print Oz books, and so that was a great time.
That's really cool. I actually didn't know that Wizard of Oz was like a book system, like a book series,
Yeah,
until recently, because I just thought it was
yeah,
just a movie. The movie and Wicked. That was it. That's all I thought it
yeah.
was. So now that you're a published author, you're out there. Um, your work is out. Do you see yourself differently now?
No, definitely not. Yeah, I mean, I think 90% of the time I'm just thinking about my day job and my those things. But no, I mean, I think the main difference is you're sort of building your career, and so you need to like focus on a lot of things that you would do at the beginning of a career, where networking, meeting people, sort of learning how mechanics work. So I spend a lot of time just sort of accumulating knowledge about where I am in my career and like how to try to build. So that's probably the main difference, is that I spend a lot of time on those things versus just like the writing side. Um, but it's fun.
So I'm assuming your family has read your books now.
Yes,
Um,
yeah. My family's very supportive.
what do they think of your books? Do they like them?
Uh, some of them. I think some of them. They all said that they liked it.
Hmm.
I'll leave it at that.
um. So, do you have any other like hidden talents that you haven't told us about?
Oh,
Do you
no.
play violin? Do you play piano? Do you?
No, yeah, talents. No, I don't really have talents.
um. So now, are you a coffee or a tea drinker?
Both. Definitely both.
Okay, I
Yeah.
can't do tea. I've lived in the South for 23 years, and I still can't do sweet tea.
Okay, but this is like my philosophy about books. Like, if you say you can't do tea, maybe you should try different kinds of tea
Oh,
because tea is such a like.
I've tried so many teas. I always hold out hope that I'm gonna like it. The only tea
Yeah.
that I like is chai.
Okay.
And I think that's because of all the extra spices that go along with it.
Yeah.
I'm a coffee person. I love coffee.
Coffee is great.
Do you like Star Wars or Star Trek?
So I was obsessed with Star Wars when I was little. Um, and to the extent that I think I once could recite A New Hope from start to finish, just from
Oh,
memory.
goodness.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, so I was obsessed with Star Wars. I have gained a lot of appreciation for Star Trek as an adult. And we've been watching, Merriman and I've been watching a lot of the recent series. So, Star Trek Discovery has been a really good time, and we watched, some of the older ones. So, yeah, I've been getting into Star Trek recently.
That's honestly kind of how I did it. I started reading the Star Wars Expanded Universe books at the beginning of the
Yeah,
pandemic,
yeah,
and then I read all of the canon ones in
right.
2020, and I was like, oh, these are actually really freaking good. Um,
X-Wing Alliance series.
the which one?
The X-Wing Alliance series remains like one of my
Mm-hmm.
favorite series of all time.
Oh, I love the Star Wars books. They're really
Yeah.
good. So I was a Star Wars person, and then I started watching. I just put on Star Trek in the background one day, and I was like, these are actually pretty good. I actually kind of like it, but I
Yeah.
would definitely say I prefer Star Wars if I had to choose. But I
Mm.
do like Star Trek. I think it's pretty good.
Who's your favorite character?
For Star Wars,
Yeah.
I have been an Ahsoka Tano fanboy since her first appearance in Clone Wars when I was a child. Her and Asajj Ventress. I don't know what it is about badass bitches with double lightsabers. They, I love them. They were both my absolute favorite.
Wait, so are you of the mindset that which is your favorite Star Wars movie?
Movie, Rogue One, actually.
Interesting. Okay.
Rogue One was been my favorite. It's the end. It's the end of that movie.
Mm.
The way it ends because it came out
Yeah.
right after Carrie Fisher passed away. Um, the way that movie ended, that got to me. I was like, oh god, that
Mm-hmm.
stabbed me in the heart. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but no, I think Rogue One will probably be my favorite Star Wars movie.
Yeah. You'll enjoy the dedication of my next book.
I'm so um. So yeah, whenever that's ready, let me know.
Yeah.
You can send me an arc.
Yeah.
um.
Soon, actually, I think probably. I mean, I'm finishing first pass pages, so
Oh my god, it's gonna be so much
they're
fun.
probably printing them now.
I'm
Yeah.
so excited.
Typos and all.
I'm so excited for your next book too. So I loved your book. So thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. This has been so much fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
thank you for your time. And yeah, I'll talk to you for your second book for sure.
Thank you. I would love that. Yeah, this is fun, and I've enjoyed talking to you about books both on camera and off camera.
It's
So
been
it's
fun.
fun to meet other readers. Yeah.